Step one, wake up early, gon' rise with the sun. Step two, get some good, some food in you. Step three, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step four, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo, set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 So life ain't easy, yo, I think there's a reason though. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. You always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they rot. Head full of flies, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. Afloat, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Wake up early, gon' rise with the sun. Step two, get some good, some food in you. Step three, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step four, everybody just do your thing.
I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss. See, I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see matter of fact.
Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind you know I'll always manifest it.
Good morning and welcome to my Mind Over Your Matter. Beautiful, happy Saturday morning. Where here is cloudy and foggy and misty, and yeah, you can hear people working outside. There hear some drills and some construction going on. So early in the morning for that, but it is a warm one. It's actually really muggy. It's really, really muggy, really foggy with the smoke from the Canadian fires. Makes it a little bit worse. But we're going to recap some of the news that went down while we were asleep. And let me set it up real quick so we can watch some news this morning. Interesting, while we're asleep, things happen because news never rests. It goes on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And with that said, let's go to our first video here of, let's see, let me get it together here. I'm going to bring it in. All right, so we're going to KTLA News 5, and this is dozens detained during ICE raids in LA. Protesters take over streets. So this is what happened while we were asleep.
Now at 11, chaos erupts as armed federal agents conduct sweeping immigration raids across Los Angeles. Good evening, I'm Micah Ullman.
And I'm Cher Calvin. Dozens were arrested during the sweep as angry protesters clashed with federal agents on the streets of downtown LA.
The surprise raids took place this morning, but the chaos continues into the night as hundreds face off with police. It all began at a Home Depot and then in LA's Garment District as federal agents used flashbang grenades to clear the protesters who were trying to disrupt the operation, targeting undocumented workers.
We have live team coverage of the raids and the protests. Lindsay Pena has reaction from the immigrant community. But we begin with Chris Wolf live near the Metropolitan Detention Center where the arrestees are being held tonight. Chris.
Yeah, Cher and Micah, protesters keep shifting locations around government buildings here in downtown LA. We have heard continuous sirens and clamor and the buzz of LAPD choppers overhead with spotlights cutting through the night sky. Police and FBI agents are keeping protesters away from the Roybal Federal Building and the Metropolitan Detention Center, buildings that were earlier vandalized and spray painted. Friday night, downtown LA, as an army of federal and local law enforcement personnel guards government buildings, including a detention center where suspected violators of immigration laws are being held. It's a tense cap-off to an explosive day. Tear gas, flashbangs, angry crowds, and heavily armed and armored U.S. immigration and customs enforcement agents marked a volatile Friday in the heart of Los Angeles during a series of immigration sweeps. Agents swarmed into at least 3 locations looking for suspected immigration law violators. The blowback was fast and fierce, with some protesters jumping in front of law enforcement vehicles to prevent them from moving.
They did need to bring in some backup here.
KTLA was in the air and on the ground during the immigration enforcement firestorm. Footage shows federal agents chasing people in the parking lot of a Home Depot in the Westlake district, not far from downtown Los Angeles. Individuals often gather at home improvement stores looking for temporary work opportunities with customers. Another raid unfolded at a clothing store along Town Avenue in the Fashion District, where agents hauled off multiple workers in handcuffs, loading them into vans, as other agents in riot gear clashed with onlookers in what could be described as a tense standoff. Immigration rights advocates joined the showdown, using megaphones at times to speak to garment industry workers, telling them to avoid signing any paperwork or speaking to federal agents. The activity is the latest roundup in the Trump administration's unparalleled crackdown on illegal immigration. Another ICE raid Friday targeted what appeared to be a clothing warehouse or possibly corporate headquarters building in the South Los Angeles area.
Since this happened today and no one was notified,
Oh,
will
this
this
bitch
happen
needs to
again
be thrown
tomorrow?
out.
Will it be next week? Will it be next month? It's that sense of uncertainty, fear, and
She needs to be
anxiety that
kicked
is
out.
created in our city
Democrats are
when this
just
happens.
the worst. Ugh, it looks
One
horrible.
demonstrator shouted at authorities tonight, quote,
Stand her
"This
ass.
is day one of the war." Reporting live
Day
in
one of what
downtown Los
war? You
Angeles,
gonna come
Chris
to
Wolf,
war?
KTLA
You're gonna
5
have
News.
Chris,
you're gonna lose
thank you.
very
The
bad.
sweeping raids igniting furious protests and
All these
contentious
people here
standoffs
could be
between
taken
activists and
into
ICE
custody.
agents and police. The detention of at least 45 individuals, including a union president, is the latest chapter in President Trump's escalating immigration crackdown.
Lindsay Pena.
Okay, they setting it up like it's a bad thing. No, it's actually a great thing. And these politicians and all these people who are manipulating the narrative, they should also be arrested and put in jail for the atrocities that they're committing and passing this type of information to us. And you can look at their body language, look at her face, look at his face. Look, she's reading a teleprompter, so she's just a puppet. These are puppets. They're actors. They're not reporters. They sit at a chair and they just talk. That's all. They read from a teleprompter and they're told what to say. A lot of this comes from pretty much individuals that are behind the scenes that you never know, you don't even know who the hell they are, but yet they get to control the narrative, which is very, very dangerous.
You live in downtown LA with reaction to the arrest from people who have loved ones caught up in the chaos. Lindsay.
Yeah, that's right, Micah and Cher. Now, we're right across the street from the federal building where that rally and protest started hours ago this afternoon, and there is still activity taking place tonight. You can hear people honking, and another crowd has gathered just across the street right now. We did talk to someone who says that her husband was caught up in those raids earlier today, and now she is wondering what will happen to her family.
We have elected officials at every level of government.
All these people
Hundreds
need to
gathered
be
outside
arrested.
the federal building
Every
on
single
Los
one of
Angeles
them.
Street Friday afternoon following ICE raids at several locations
All
earlier
those
in the
people
day.
should be arrested.
Among those in the crowd was Dulce Camacho, who tells KTLA her husband was taken into custody near a Home Depot in Westlake.
I was able to see him for 10 minutes.
Are you American
he said
or are you
They
Mexican?
haven't given him anything to
Are you
read.
from Mexico?
They made him sign some papers. You know, he speaks some English, but he doesn't read it well. So I know he doesn't know what he signed.
Originally from Mexico, she says he's been in the country for 13
originally from
years and
Mexico.
is undocumented.
Oh, she needs
Now
to go
she
back
has to
to
tell her
Mexico.
two daughters their father.
All these
won't be
people
home
need to go
tonight.
back.
I explained to her when we picked her up from school with my sister, you know, that I've been talking to her every day about this, so she kind of knows. I told her I don't know what we're gonna do, but we're gonna be okay. You know, we don't have a big family, but we have my sister, my brother-in-law, and you know, with that we're gonna be okay and stick together and try to get him if he is
stick
able to
together
get
and get
released
deported
here. Then
together.
that's great. If not, then you know, work hard and try to see how we could keep the family together. Shame on you! Shame on you!
Also taken into custody today was SEIU California President David Huerta. In a statement on X, U.S. Attorney Bill Essayli said he was, quote, arrested for interfering with federal officers and will face arraignment
interfering.
in federal court on Monday.
Have to be taken to the hospital, and he's being detained for exercising his First Amendment rights. So we're
And this
asking
one
for the
here
immediate release
needs
of
to
our President David
be
Huerta.
monitored
Local elected
also.
officials who spoke at today's rally,
Don't
like
hide
Assembly member Mark
between.
Gonzalez,
Don't
say
hide
they will
behind
fight
First
for the
Amendment
people
rights.
affected by
Hold
the
on.
raids.
Let's call a spade, and no, you don't get to hide behind the First Amendment because you say, oh, but this is the First Amendment. If you're an illegal immigrant, you don't have no First Amendment. You don't have any amendments. Your amendment is to your country that you came from. Okay, like these individuals, they just don't understand and don't get it. That you're in this country illegally. We have a new president, a new system, and the system requires you to leave. Now, they gave you the option to leave voluntarily. Now, it's up to you to leave. Now, if you don't want to leave, then you're going to suffer the consequences of what's just going to transpire, which is you being kicked out of the country forcefully. So there's going to be a lot of people. Remember, I told you they're trying to reach 3,000 a day, and in order to get 3,000 a day, oh man, it's going to take an army, and we're going to bring up some reserves. 20,000 have already been called from the military, from reserves. I think 20,000 is too low. I think it should be more like 250,000 to do sweeps and get all of them out. Get them out the same way they came in, running through the borders and crossing illegally. Well, we could do the same way. We could run through your city, get all these illegal immigrants, and throw them out of the country. Yeah, what goes around comes around. You're responsible for your consequence, like for your you came illegally. End of story. There's no what's the legal process? There's no legal process. Where there's a legal process when you came into the country. Oh, you skipped the legal process to come in here legally. Okay, so you skipped that process. Well, you know what? We're gonna skip the process of you going through the courts and throwing your ass right back to your country, there where you belong, back to your home country. Let's go ahead and take a look at another story here with the
that breaking news we've been
protesters
talking about all night.
last
As you
night.
can see there, federal agents blocking protesters from a parking lot. And Mike, is this the same parking lot where you said that ICE agents were actually gathering?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is, Patton, right there.
This is from last night.
On it. We already had one protester get pulled out by federal agents and taken into custody. So this person was in the line that the federal agents were trying to push everybody back from. He, there was a bit of a struggle. They grabbed him out of the line, threw him down, and now he is in handcuffs. So that's at least one person that's been detained. Ollie, let's go back and look at the rest of the crowd. So this is a parking lot where we believe that federal agents were staging. We don't have any reason to believe right now that they were about to conduct another operation. From our perspective, it looked like this is where they were staging some of their heavier vehicles to be able to do security around the federal Roybal building as well as the Metropolitan Detention Center. Citizens noticed that they were here. They don't like that they're here. And so then this protest gathered. So
who are they to? It's not up to them. Hold on. It's not up to them to like or dislike. This is what's happening. We are eliminating and taking out the individuals that don't belong here. If you're illegal, you don't belong here. If you're going to protest and cause a ruckus and stand in the middle of the street like you're doing right now, well, guess what? You could be taken to jail. And good luck. And having to pay fines and doing time and having a record on you that's going to stick on you for a very long time. So, like, choose your battles wisely. This is not one battle that could be won. This is a battle that is going to take many, 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 many years of pretty much fighting for the American freedom here. And if you came here legally, then I understand. And I'm like, okay with that. You know, you went through the process. You paid out money to get the lawyers and all the stuff that you have to go through to become a citizen here. That's the proper way of doing it, because that's how you get vetted into this country. But if you're going to skip the line and just cross under and then expect you to be able to stay here like with no consequences, you got another thing coming. This is going to turn into a wake and bake show, because as you can see, I got my medicine already here. It's turning into a wake and bake. Wake and bake, everybody. Smells so good. Go back to the news here and let's feel the energy. It's not good. These people are in the wrong, and they're going to continue to act the ruckus and act the fool, and they're going to cause disruption. There's going to be protesters, and maybe down the line, maybe a riot or so. But these people are going to have to be held accountable and put in their place, because no, you cannot just run the country because you say so. No, we have a president who is in control of the country that is dictating and running it the way it's supposed to. So here we go.
Lot there. And then we just minutes ago, and Ollie, if you can pan to the right, I want to show them the Bearcats that moved in. The armored vehicles came in from down the street, the ones that were actually back over doing security for the Metropolitan Detention Center and the federal building. These agents moved in, then they created a skirmish line pushing people down the street. And we'll show you back again where that crowd is, and that's kind of where they're at right now. So now you've got the feds turning people around, trying to deal with this crowd. LAPD, nowhere to be found. LAPD did a quick drive-by and said, have at it, feds, good luck. You got the LAPD helicopter overhead. That is the only assistance that's being lent right now. But as of this moment, this is an entirely federal operation, and you have this crowd that has grown in size,
just grab them
now
and
into the street,
put them in the
and now
paddy
you've got
wagon.
federal agents trying to push them out of the way, and you've also had people taken into,
All
at
of
least
them need
one
to
person
go.
already taken into custody by the feds.
That big girl right there,
whatever they
that
want.
big girl needs to
Obviously.
go.
You know, LAPD said they would be there if they needed their help in terms of traffic and to ensure safety. I am surmising, Mike, that the fact right now that it's not like it was earlier when we saw, you know, smoke bombs being thrown or objects being thrown at authorities, that could be one reason why LAPD is just letting the feds handle this?
Well, and the other thing that I've noticed, Pat, is that it seems like the feds have prepared themselves. So, and you're looking at live pictures from the ground on the right side of your screen. So earlier in the day, I don't think that they were necessarily ready for the crowd
and migrating them to a side,
so
that's not going to work.
LAPD.
You got to grab them and arrest them and process them.
Federal agents
that's the only way.
Kind of fatigue
get them in the system,
as well as in armored vehicles. I've started to see the HSI armored vehicles late tonight. They were not around in the downtown area when that whole thing was going on.
Right now, if you get in front of my car like that, I probably will run you over. I'll probably run you over.
Crowd, which is,
you know, answer your questions later and say, "Oh, how come you ran this person over?" Well, he wasn't supposed to be in the middle of the street, and I'm trying to
instead of asking for LAPD. But you look at these guys,
and they jump in front of me.
More heavily armed than
so
LAPD
they got run over.
LAPD was in their, they had some tactical gear, but basically helmets and less than lethal rounds.
People that think that they're right in the middle of the street, like the guy on the bike right there. I would have grabbed him.
They are carrying, their rifles they've got with them. As you can see, they're still trying to push people out into the street, or out of the street rather.
Blocking
let
the
some of these
vehicles.
cars that are parked get out of there. So it has turned into another situation that we were hoping to avoid tonight. And really, at this point, it's simply because the federal agents were staging in that parking lot, and people don't like that.
And they noticed them.
Here's
and,
what people like.
You know, they're probably heckling or yelling at them,
right?
Really to no avail.
Because they don't like that.
You just wonder. I see some cars being able to pass. You just wonder how long.
How come you don't protest for other things that are important?
Continue until before they, even push the line back further. That would be more of them forming a skirmish line and actually pushing people back.
Right. Yeah,
we need to open more jails. We need more jails.
A little bit more Bearcats, and we saw, obviously, like I said, that one person being detained.
We need
but it's hard
more
to tell.
police officers,
Now they're
more military.
Scattered. They're not necessarily
individuals
kind of in that skirmish line like they were a minute ago.
Okay.
Join.
Well,
how come all these people don't go to their countries?
So we're going to go to him now to find out the latest. Hi, Zach.
They don't
what
fight
are you
for
saying?
their right in their own countries.
Hey, Pat, we are on, North Hill Street and Alpine here, right next to the east-west bank here in Chinatown. The FBI, within the last few minutes here, and ICE and Homeland Security have just decided to push these protesters back away from this parking lot entrance here that you can see Anna, our photographer, is aiming at right now. So you can see it. It seems like this is where a lot of these FBI vehicles are staging.
There you go.
Where this armored vehicle is behind this car here. But you can see all the FBI officers right here. And here comes one of those armored vehicles now. Just about.
Just get out of the street. So just so
yeah, we can move. We're being asked to move right now by the FBI. So let me just get up on a curb here. But like I was saying, you see this armored vehicle coming down this curb here. About 15 minutes ago, there were other unmarked vehicles trying to get into that parking lot, and a lot of these protesters were basically trying to block those unmarked vehicles from getting into that parking lot. A lot of them shining flashlights in FBI officers' eyes, like strobe lights. They're shining. You can see a lot of the protesters now are up here on the curb. They've been pushed this way off of the street. A lot of them have their phones, are observing what's going on.
I see a lot of them come covering their face.
As we approach
A lot of them are
11:30
covering
here
their
in the
face.
evening. This all started early this morning when those
don't
ICE raids
understand
took
why.
place at the Home Depot near MacArthur Park, as well as no profanity, sir. Is that okay?
I will. Not profanity.
Okay. So who are you?
Doesn't matter who I am. I am.
Oh Lord! And look at this one with the cover. You saw
LA
that?
citizen.
It doesn't
And these
matter
guys,
who I am.
I don't know where they think they
illegal.
are. They're not in Ukraine.
I myself, but
They
you know
are
the
not in
internet
Russia.
can figure out
Look
who
at
the
them.
hell you are in a
I
heartbeat.
don't know what they're thinking. We're paying for our taxes, their gear and their stuff.
Okay, understood.
No, it
Okay,
doesn't
thank
work
you.
that way because you pay taxes. Don't mean
Right. Okay, so as you can see clearly, Pat, people very passionate about what happening is here in downtown Los Angeles, in the Chinatown area.
My taxes have been paid.
They don't like that these
the
FBI
street,
officers, that these agents are
and
here.
pausing
But
what's
as
going
you can
on.
see, North Hill
So,
Street clearly blocked off
it don't
by
make sense.
FBI. There are 3 or 4 helicopters in the air right now. It's going to be a late Friday night here, but again, about an hour ago, we saw these FBI vehicles were staging here in this parking lot. Protesters started to show up.
With middle finger,
It
I would
seemed
have
like the
pulled them out of the car.
protesters
But
believed that the FBI
Doing
was staging
a
here
legal
with
U-turn.
ICE to go and do more
doing a
raids.
legal U-turn.
And but
Couple
we
of
have
calls
yet
right
to
there.
see, these agencies go out and perform more raids since
haven't
those
here since-
early raids we saw this morning. So
They're
that's
the same,
what's
but,
happening here on the street.
they wanna play
As you can see,
stupid.
very active situation here. Things have moved away from the federal building and have now there's now a confrontation here between FBI and protesters.
I don't understand these people wearing masks. That's what I don't understand.
No, here, I think Mike
Why are
Rogers
they
knows the
wearing masks?
waymo of all things
Why are
in
they
the
covering
middle
their
of the
faces?
protest there. And
Like,
I say protest, but
they
this
complain
doesn't
about the
seem as
ICE agents
organized as
covering
it
their
was
faces.
earlier, Zach.
How
It
come
seems
the
like people are
citizens are
there
covering their
with their
faces and
phones,
and
documenting, filming,
not showing their
yelling
face.
things at, I'm
Makes
not
you
going to call
wonder.
them officers. I mean, that's the FBI.
Agents,
That's
yeah.
the federal government.
Right.
They're yelling things at them, but haven't seen any kind of one person was arrested, but haven't seen any kind of activity like we saw earlier today. And this is a very different situation. LAPD has been involved in many, many protests, and they've had a lot of patience.
Yeah, I'm running out of it. Let's move forward because
Are here serving search warrants.
see how they
and
get
are
in the middle of
here,
the street?
with from orders from the
You see these people with their masks and they're standing right in the middle of the street. The police should come and with paddy wagons and start arresting all these people. Arrest them all. It just that's how weak LA is with their police force and their mayor. How weak it is that they do not step up and enforce the law. They just the law is written, but they don't enforce it. They don't enforce anything, and this is what you get. You get lawless individuals standing right in the middle of the street. If it was me that needed to go by, I would run your ass over. And I don't care. I'd say, oh, so why did you run him over? He was standing in the middle of the street. Well, that's your answer. The motherfucker was standing in the middle of the street at an emergency. And he jumped in front of my car and he flew over my car. That's the answer right there. Let me progress a little bit more forward.
Listen to what the congressman said. They could be there for security, but just not exactly sure. But the point is they want people to disperse, and he wants people to disperse as well.
He wants people to disperse. He wants the agents to disperse as well, which I want to have SkyCal pull out a little bit because it does appear that that's what's happening. So what looks like happened is they came in with the Bearcats, they formed a skirmish line, and then behind them, we're looking at this contingency of agents that were in that parking lot now all leaving. So you can see they've kind of gotten in their cars. There are significantly less cars in that parking lot as these agents start to leave. So that is what the representative wanted was, hey, just go find somewhere else to do this. Just diffuse the situation. The protesters are obviously very passionate about this. So it does look like, at least for now, that the federal agents are leaving this parking lot. And I'm going to ask Oliver to give us a kind of a wide shot of the parking lot, Pat, because I can tell you that earlier it was full. Almost every spot in the lot was full with some sort of federal agent and federal vehicle. And you can see it is significantly downsizing as we look at kind of the line of cars working to get out of the parking lot. So it looks like those federal agents came in, wanted to create an opportunity for these cars to safely exit the parking lot. Because if you go back, Ollie, to that skirmish line, and you see it there on the right side of your screen as as well. But we're looking at those agents have not pushed forward at all, right? If they were trying to just deal with disperse the crowd, we would have watched that skirmish line continue to move forward and continue to push the crowd. And that's really not what has kind of happened. It looks like they've almost wanted to create perimeter control so that the remaining agents in the parking lot can safely
Los Angeles,
exit
this
without
area
being
right here
blocked
is
by the
probably a
protesters.
lot of Mexicans.
And you know what's interesting? Well, I mean, obviously that's how you do things.
And they can go back to Mexico if they
Gomez
feel that way. Then go back to Mexico.
And it's like he had a conversation.
So we're gonna go ahead and go to the next story because that story is stupid already, and it's already getting on my nerves because it's just stupidity. Let's go to the next one. The current system's not working on this FDA commissioner here. So
is the FDA commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary. Doctor, thanks for being with us today. Great to have you. Perfect voice on this issue. What's your response to that criticism from Dems?
Well, for the last 26 years, we've seen really no innovation in baby formula. So the current system is not working. The FDA doubled the number of employees here at the agency since 2007 to today. So doubling the number of employees has not fixed the baby formula problem. The problem is that the government issues a recipe and companies must follow that recipe to get baby formula out on the market. And so for 26 years, we've seen essentially very few innovative products, almost no changes. Moms want baby formula without seed oil, without corn syrup, without added sugar, without arsenic and lead and other heavy metals.
Iron.
And so we convened a group of experts to figure out how we get this right and how we modernize the way we approve baby formula in the United States.
I know the answer how to fix this. I know the perfect answer for this. Breastfeed your damn child. Breastfeed your child, and you don't have to deal with this formula and all the bullshit that comes in this formula. Now, if your child doesn't want to latch on and grab from your nip, get a pump and pump out the milk, and that's what you feed your child with. You provide the best nutrients for yourself, like for your baby. You develop yourself, women, and that's called breast milk. And that milk is better than any formula that you could put together. It just doesn't make any sense that you're depending on the government to put together a concoction to feed your child. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Straight from the source, get it from the nip. Get it from the tit, and your baby will be happy. Trust me. I was a happy baby. I got the nip. My goodness gracious. Like, and you save a lot of money. You regenerate your own breast milk daily. Throughout the day, you're constantly producing milk. You just, oh my God. It's going to be like a irritation on Saturday mornings to get myself irritated with these stories. Because it just doesn't make any sense to me. They don't make sense. And naturally, you could breastfeed your child, and it's just 100 times better than any formula that you could give your child. You know what? Let's go to the next story because I'm not going back to that one. Like, that's common sense. People need to use common sense. Let's go to the Elon, like the person I don't trust at all. He's a very narcissistic, self-entitled, self-gloating. It's all about my money, bitch, and about what I say and not what Trump, who is elected president, says. And what Trump says goes. It doesn't matter what Elon says because he's not an elected official. He's just a donor, a very rich donor, the richest man in the world, but yet the brain of a pea.
Amid the fallout between Elon Musk and President Donald Trump,
I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Musk threatened to decommission SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft. That's a big deal for U.S. space missions.
Dragon has been the only U.S. spacecraft launched by a U.S.-based company transporting astronauts to and from the station from the U.S.
I find this to be disconcerting how quickly this went to the threatening from contracts. That's not good for the United States.
Musk retracted the threat just hours later. Still, as the feud continues, SpaceX remains one of the largest financial and logistical vulnerabilities for both Musk and Trump. Since 2008, the government has awarded SpaceX more than $20 billion in contracts across at least 10 different agencies. Most of it is focused here.
NASA needs SpaceX, SpaceX needs NASA.
Musk said recently that SpaceX is expected to generate $1.1 billion in revenue this year from NASA. The company is less dependent on government contracts than it was in the past, but still does big business with agencies.
SpaceX has really deep relationships with a lot of government agencies. Unraveling that would not be easy for either side.
NASA made a push during the Obama administration to contract with commercial companies.
We want to leap into the future.
We had one launch provider, United Launch Alliance. They were the result of a merger of Lockheed and Boeing. When they consolidated, the costs went up and the U.S. lost market share to the rest of the world, namely China, France, and Russia. We set up competitions, and SpaceX has been by far the leader in these major competitions.
Elon brought the cost of his Dragon down to under $1 billion and then under hundreds of millions. I mean, just the savings are wonderful from a customer perspective because I can now purchase services rather than have to do them all in-house myself.
Since then, NASA has obligated more than $15 billion in awards to SpaceX, including $2.9 billion to develop a human landing system as part of the Artemis program. In 2022, NASA said the contract for ferrying astronauts to and from the ISS would total $4.9 billion.
Beyond sort of the dollars and cents, as we've been talking about with these astronaut missions, it's SpaceX that has been allowing NASA to do some of its highest profile operations.
When NASA says it's safe to fly on a SpaceX rocket, the world will follow. The governments, industries, anyone will say, if it's good enough for NASA, it's good enough for us.
SpaceX recently had to step in when another NASA contractor, Boeing, was unable to bring back 2 astronauts from the ISS.
The fact that SpaceX was tapped by NASA last summer to bring those 2 astronauts back to Earth, NASA did not want Boeing to sort of finish that job, shows how comfortable NASA is or has gotten over the years with using SpaceX and the trust that the agency has that the vehicle and the operational side of it works and can be safe. It also very much did highlight the dependence NASA has on SpaceX for this particular operation.
Between Starlink flights and missions for outside customers, SpaceX carried out nearly double the amount of launches than the next 3 most active companies combined.
That is like a huge ongoing, business and something that SpaceX is expected to be doing for years to come.
Agencies also contract SpaceX for its own satellites, its growing and strategically important Starlink system.
You see sort of Starlink popping up in everything from military bases or government agencies needing some kind of satellite internet solution.
One of the most notable contracts is one to provide Starlink to Ukraine.
A lot of military officials who are thinking about the future of war have been obsessed and been really interested in how the Ukrainians have used Starlink. That experience,
don't give them that
conflict
shit.
zone,
It's just
has
you're
created
doing
just a
something that
lot
they
of awareness at the Pentagon and frankly in governments around the world about the need for fast, reliable, secure communications in conflict areas.
Starlink is also a big revenue generator for SpaceX outside of the government. Quilty Space, a consulting firm, estimated that Starlink revenue is set to grow to $12.3 billion
just proves
this year.
that they're polluting the atmosphere. They're polluting. Let me come back over here to me because the stories are really stupid stories. They're polluting our airwaves with these microwave signals that are coming from the upper atmosphere and probably from the ionosphere. And they're radiating these signals, powerful signals coming at us, bombarding us daily. And no one's protesting. No, they'd rather protest for illegal immigrants outside, ICE area where they were having an operation. They're taking down illegals. They'd rather protest that instead in the middle of the street, but they don't give a shit that they have all these signals and Starlink bombarding your atmosphere with all this. It's incredible. Like, where is humanity priorities is at? It's just not there. Let's go to the next story because I really don't give a shit about Elon. This one here is pretty crazy. A sheriff down in Florida, Marcos Lopez, arrested in uniform, charged with racketeering. Wow. Okay, so that means he was doing some kind of gambling thing. Pretty much off the tables, probably. Let's check this out.
Our next one takes us to the southeast, the Sunshine State of Florida, Osceola County in particular. Take a look at this video. All right, this is what we're seeing right now. Marcos Lopez, the suspended sheriff of Osceola County, he made his first court appearance via Zoom from jail this morning on felony racketeering charges. You're watching this video right now. Lopez was taken into custody yesterday in his uniform. Look at that. So now for more on what he's charged with, we're going to bring into the conversation our friend and colleague there at Fox 35 Orlando, reporter Marie Edinger. She joins me. Marie, so good of you to be with us here. I would say this was quite shocking. We've covered a lot of arrests in a lot of places, but not many for law enforcement in particular. What's going on?
Sure. So the sheriff, as you mentioned, has charges for racketeering, also conspiracy to commit racketeering. Those are both first-degree felonies. Each could come with up to 30 years in prison. The Department of Homeland Security actually led this investigation. It's the Attorney General for the state of Florida who is leading the charges, though. The investigation stems around an illegal gambling house that the sheriff is accused of essentially running. So he is accused of having a number of slot machines there, of running a lottery out of it. This is all taking place in Kissimmee, which is in his district. But the investigators say that it also spanned into Lake County. That's where he is in jail right now. The investigators also say that he used his position as sheriff in order to further the gambling station's profits and to obstruct an investigation. There's actually some mention made by prosecutors today about him showing up at or during an investigation while deputies were there at the gambling house and interfering. So those are allegations they're making as well. Today, he pleaded not guilty. That just came down maybe 20 minutes ago through the court system. He was given a $1 million bail, $500,000 for each of those. I talked with a criminal defense attorney who told me today that in order to post that bail, he'd have to give a bail bondsman $100,000, and he'd have to cover $900,000 in collateral to cover the $1 million total for the bond. The judge said today that in order to post bail or to post bond, that he would have to prove to the court that none of the money that he is posting came from anything having to do with illicit activity. So he has to have a court date first in order to prove that, or to prove that to the state. So he could be here for quite a while. The man who, up until yesterday, served as the sheriff of Osceola County, today appeared before a judge wearing jailhouse orange.
How do I start the bond process?
The judge set Sheriff Marcos Lopez's bond at $1 million. A criminal defense attorney told me today he was shocked by that.
Why do you feel it's excessive?
It's not meant to punish someone. The amount of a bond is to make sure that someone does not, it's not a flight risk.
Prosecutors argued the nature and circumstances of the case justify the bond, and the judge agreed. The state claims they have texts, WhatsApp messages, wire transfers, and more, proving the sheriff earned $600,000 to $700,000 in this alleged criminal enterprise. And they say they have photos that don't just show he was at the gambling house, but that he used his position as the sheriff to obstruct a criminal investigation there.
An extreme breach of public trust. The circumstances surrounding his misuse of office as the sheriff of Osceola County are very serious.
2 of the 4 co-defendants also had their first appearances today. Carol Cote was up first.
I have 3 young, small children.
She was given a $100,000 bond. She's already posted that and been released. Next up,
Sharon Denise Fedrick.
Sharon Fedrick's criminal history is messy. She has tons of charges and a few convictions for things like identity theft, grand theft, organized fraud, and that's not all.
8 felony grand thefts in Lee County from 1993. She also has federal history.
She did 2 years in federal prison for lying to the IRS back in 2005. She's been in and out of jail in Orange County since 2016. She was just arrested again 2 months ago for 3 active warrants out of Orange County. You want to guess where deputies caught her? The Eclipse, the gambling house at the center of this investigation.
Miss Fedrick remains in custody in Lake County. Well, that makes it difficult for her to appear in Orange County. So there's a fair logistical problem there.
The judge didn't buy that argument. Fedrick got a $300,000 bail. The judge said today that if Sheriff Lopez is able to bond out, he would have to wear an ankle monitor. He'd have to turn over his passport. He would have to turn over his guns as well and would not be allowed any contact with any of the 4 co-defendants. As I mentioned, 2 appeared in court today, but 2 have not yet been booked into the Lake County Jail, so we're still awaiting that. I'll also mention that the Attorney General's office says there could be more charges or more people charged. This investigation is still ongoing. Andrew?
Wow. Marie, just one question for you. Who's in charge in Osceola County right now? Who's the top cop?
Who is the top cop?
Yeah, so the governor appointed somebody who was a head for the Florida Highway Patrol in this area to take over in the interim. There would be a special election, but that wouldn't be until the next 2026 election as scheduled.
Good year.
All right, Marie Edinger there live for us with Fox 35 Orlando. Marie, thanks for bringing us this important story. We'll talk soon. Have a good weekend.
Sure thing, you too.
Okay, in the meantime, though, checking in with yet another one of our colleagues at Fox 35 Orlando, reporter
his
Randy Hildreth.
at 1
She's
million.
monitoring the reaction there from the community to this arrest. Let's listen.
Okay, 1 million. That's a lot of money. That's crazy. That's a crazy amount of money for racketeering, and I think it was like a gambling place, a gambling thing that they were doing. Wow, that's wild. You see, you can't really even trust the police. The police they're crooked cops too. There's a lot of them. If they caught this one, I guarantee you, there's about more than 1,000 of them out there throughout the country that are just like this. He so happens to got caught. You know, there's more. You saw they got 2 officers. They got 2. They got a male and they got the female. The female, she got a $300,000 bond. That's wild. So there's others out there. This is. It is what it is. You know, there's something that came up right now. In Benny Johnson's show, saying that the Elon and Trump feud, it's a hoax. It was all set up, and they are exposing the Democrats and weeding out the Democrats to see who's who and what's what, and they're all showing their colors like nice and bright, and they're saying, "Aha, gotcha, motherfuckers," because we're not at odds. We did this to smell you guys out, and you guys stink like a motherfucker. So it could be a hoax. It could be something that was set up, and it kind of makes sense because, like, to be mad at someone like that and call everything a big hoax and big, and Trump would have lost if he didn't have Elon, which is not true, because he did not have Elon in 2016 and he won and he beat Hillary Clinton. Okay, so he didn't have Elon then and he won. So what makes you think now it was going to be any different? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. But let's go to the next story, which is a pretty weird one. Well, it's good for Pride, right? Happy Pride, right? So let's go to this story because this one's going to be a little weird. Weird. It's like, that dude looks like a lady. Dude looks like a lady. You're gonna do a little Little
Now,
Dan.
my winner, Prue, was common sense. Just common sense generally, because we've seen a little bit more than we usually do this week. First, we saw the very sensible decision to demand mandatory sex testing from all athletes from World Boxing. And I read a short time ago that controversial Olympic gold medalist Iman Khalif has already gone AWOL. She's pulled the pin on her next competition as a result of this announcement. And then, of course, the decision by the family court we've been discussing today about allowing the court to identify an expert witness who actually wrote the guidelines on gender care for youth and how she was discredited by the court. So I thought, very common sense.
Well,
decisions.
it is. It's a bit of hope for those of us who have actually been despairing about what this trend has been, where apart from political correctness, which is just absurd, the attacks on free speech, and now this whole gender ridiculous stuff where we've got men competing against women and the associations in denial about that. Thank goodness that they're waking up to themselves. And of course, the same with this doctor who is an activist. That's what she is. And thank goodness that this judge has finally outed her and the laws are going to be reassessed. Thank goodness.
I think it's uncovered a lot of things for people. Your loser of the week is Dorinda Cox and her defection to Labor from the Greens. Why is that?
She's a loser because we're all on to her now. We all know and suspected that she was a political opportunist. When she first left the Labor Party and said that they were so patronising to women and coloured people, that was why she was going to the Greens. And then, of course, she got very, I was going to say shitty, and I will, because she didn't get...
I don't think we can say that at this
sorry about that, everybody. But in fact, she, wasn't a Greens leader, wasn't picked as a Greens leader. So then she's defected.
Well, my loser is Elon Musk, because I think he comes off worse in this whole spat with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
It's not going to win him over from people who hate Trump, because he endorsed him to begin with. So I think it's all just pretty embarrassing. But Prue McSween...
It is embarrassing. It's fucking weird. That's what it is. If you're a dude, you're a dude, Can't change it, You can't change your chromosomes. Last I checked. Let's go to the next story here. Chilling warning on China's targeting U.S. power grid.
A former NSA Intel analyst warning that Americans and our power grid is at risk, directly caused by solar panels from China being used on farms across the U.S. Here to explain, that former NSA official, Rocky Cole, founder of iVerify. Rocky, thanks for being here. Can you explain exactly what China did here?
Sure. Undisclosed communication devices were recently found in the power inverters of a number of solar panels sold in the United States and which were manufactured in China. And the concern is that the devices could be used to attack the United States power grid. Specifically, they could have attacked the panels themselves, or could have been a jumping off point to move into the wider grid they're connected to. It's not entirely clear. Either way, these findings raise the possibility that China could cut power to key areas of the United States to hurt the economy in the event of a war.
So to be clear, when you buy a product, any product, specifically in this case from China, there's a list of 10 items in the product. But in this case, there was an 11th, and it was this communication device that they did not disclose, correct?
Correct. And it's very concerning and unfortunately not an isolated incident. China and the United States have been engaged in what you might call a cyber Cold War for over a decade. And the public evidence overwhelmingly suggests that China has orchestrated a long-running stealth campaign to implant U.S. critical infrastructure with similar backdoors that could be activated in the event of a war, specifically to disrupt American commerce and government operations. And frankly, the solar panels are the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, so to that point, what other products do you have concern about that China has sabotaged with items, other products within said products that we don't know about?
Well, a September 2024 report from the House Committee on China, jointly with the House Homeland Security Committee, alleged that Chinese-made port cranes used in the United States seaports contained unexplained cellular modems that could also have served as a backdoor for data collection and possible disruption.
And this on top of that news earlier this week about that potential bioterrorism that could destroy many American crops is extremely concerning. Of course, the Chinese are denying this. They put out a statement. I'm not going to read it because you know what it says. We didn't do it. But of course, that remains to be seen. Meantime, your company, iVerify, uncovering evidence of possible spyware on iPhones within the U.S. What did you discover, Rocky?
We have. Throughout late last year and early this year, our platform detected anomalous activity on iPhones belonging to political campaigns, media organizations, governments, and AI companies operating in the United States. And this anomalous behavior turned out to be the result of a previously unknown vulnerability in iMessage related to assigning nicknames and avatars to iPhone contacts. And in the course of investigating the vulnerability, we discovered evidence suggesting this vulnerability may have been used in targeted attacks as recently as February of this year. You know, we monitor a very large number of mobile devices, and the behaviors we saw on these devices were extremely rare, concentrated exclusively among the types of people who are routinely targeted with spyware. And Apple even sent a threat notification to one of the targeted individuals.
Who's behind it?
Well, it's very difficult to do attribution if you're a private company like we are, but I can say that all the targets had some sort of direct connection to China. Either they had been previously surveilled by China, they were engaged in some sort of activism against China, or engaged in business pursuits counter to or of great interest to China.
The head of Apple Security Engineering and Architecture denying these claims, saying the following: we've thoroughly analyzed the information provided by iVerify and strongly disagree with the claims of a targeted attack against our users. Rocky Cole, quick response?
We have a very large body of circumstantial evidence that we find very convincing. No smoking gun, but it was definitely worth putting out for the research community to chew on.
Rocky Cole, really interesting and frightening stuff. Appreciate it this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Carly.
All right.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox.
Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. Want to continue on with our top headlines. Before we went to that 2-minute break, I told you we'll be staying there in New York City, showing you that live vantage point that we have there in the Big Apple. But big news this week, we're hearing an update on Luigi Mangione. You don't remember, he's the man who's accused of shooting and killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This happened in December of last year, leading to a days-long manhunt. And now we're continuing to get those updates and figure out what happened behind the scenes. I do want to put this up on your screen as well. This is a tweet that we have there from TMZ, and we're learning a bit more as Luigi Mangione reportedly mapped out his thought process before killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He did this in a journal that was found on his person during his detainment. Big news that we want to now dive a bit deeper into. Want to bring into the conversation legal analyst Jeremy Rosenthal. Jeremy, thanks for being with us here on Live Now. We've been talking over the last few months about Luigi Mangione, some of these updates that we've seen in this case. Now this latest news, there was a journal on him when he was detained detailing what some folks are calling a manifesto there in his plot to kill Brian Thompson.
This is very disturbing stuff, and it feeds really right into the government's hands here. The government's theory being that he is deranged, that he is intentional, that he was crossing state lines to commit this murder. All of it feeds into the capital murder statute. And not only that, it really also kind of talks about sort of his overarching political theories that he wanted to sort of spark an uprising, if you will, that he wanted to that he wanted to make a broader point, which sort of goes again to a lot of the government's theories of terrorism. And it really,
he definitely needs to see the death sentence. Like I always say on my show, the eye for an eye, do one to others, and make sure you don't do anything harmful to others that can really come back to you. You know, it's like love thy neighbor. Crickets. No, this guy killed someone, killed a CEO. It doesn't matter. He killed someone, open fired on someone. And I think if you were to, go through the courts, I think the death penalty should be in play, and I think he should die the same way you killed the innocent person died of, which was a gunshot wound to wherever part of the body, head, who knows. I don't, but I just know the man is dead, and I think this kid should see the same death, to experience the same death. Maybe, I know they do these death sentences that they can do a firing squad instead of like lethal injection or any of those other things. Hey, there's some states here they do. I know the train very loud. They do live fire. They do executions that way, and they'll shoot you. They'll shoot you to death. And I think this guy he should die the same way he killed that person, and through gunfire. So let's continue that story and then wrap it up with one last story, and then that'll be it for the show. I'm not going to be doing a show this evening. I don't think I'm going to be doing one. I'm not sure yet, because I am going to be watching wrestling. Some wrestling events are going to be happening tonight, and actually starting this afternoon with Worlds Collide. It's a WWE NXT event where they're going to have it's going to be a AAA wrestling is going to be involved in that event. So it's going to be a mixture of two brands, two companies coming together and having an event, which is, I think, is going to be interesting. I'm going to watch that. That starts at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And also tonight, I think it's at 7 or 8 p.m. is Money in the Bank. So I'll be watching that tonight. So I got a busy day of wrestling today to be entertained, and I'm going to actually cook some dinner early. I'm going to start cooking it now because I'm going to prep up a lasagna for tonight. So the way I make it, I kind of make it by scratch, a lot of my items. So it's a good amount of little work to do, but I have two 13 by 9 trays that I'm going to do with lasagna. And the lasagna here, it tends to be super good. The next day is 100 times better because the seasonings and the flavor penetrates into like the pasta, and it just tastes so much better the next day. The next day lasagna is always the best. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be prepping that, and it is a lot because I cut up all my veggies that I put into onion, peppers, all peppers, like orange, red, green, yellow peppers. I put a lot of like peppers and onions in there, and garlic, and I cut everything up and I put it all in and cook it all together, and it tastes so good. The way I make it, like my mom, she envies me in my lasagnas because I make really pretty good lasagna, I gotta say. But let's continue with this Luigi guy, and then we'll wrap it up. This is a 10 minute more of this Luigi, and we'll wrap it up with one more story, and then that'll be it for the day. So let me set this up again, and let's continue.
Again, just kind of feeds into their argument that this is what makes this a capital offense. Murder is a very complicated statute. There's murder and there's murder. People die all the time at the hands of another, but it's always going to be based on the intent. It's always going to be based on the culpability. And when you have culpability that is so high, that's intentional, that's trying to incite some mass chaos, that's when in the eyes of the federal law, it turns capital. And that's exactly what the government's going to rely on to try to get the death penalty here.
And that truly is the significance of this case, putting up some video that we have there from when Luigi Mangione was brought back to New York City. Of course, he was found and arrested a few states away. I want to talk about and quote what he had there in the journal. He says, quote, "So you say you want to rebel against the deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel. Do you bomb the HQ? No, bombs equal terrorism." This is allegedly what Mangione wrote. This was in that notebook that they found when he was arrested 5 days later. The words, though, we've been talking about the intent behind the Capitol murder. How significant are his words saying stuff like terrorism, talking about bombs, and saying the words rebel? Is it going to really, really stick out for those jurors if this eventually goes to trial?
It makes defending this case exceptionally hard. When you look at Luigi Mangione's case, if you're a defense lawyer, if you're defending this, you clear the table and you kind of ask yourself, okay, what do we have here, right? Well, you don't have "it's not me" because we're on videotape, and they found 8 million piles of evidence on him. So you don't have that defense going. You don't have the government screwed this up. You may have a little bit of that. But these are the best of the best as far as federal and state prosecutors that are going after him. And even if they've got something wrong, they're not going to get much wrong. They're contesting a lot of the search and seizure at the McDonald's. I don't know that you necessarily hang your hat entirely on that. So that's not really an option. What you have left is not guilty by reason of insanity. But to do that, you have to show that even if you were insane, even if you didn't understand what was going on, that you still understood the difference between right and wrong. And the journal, the manifesto, he clearly is, in some instances, unhinged, to be sure, but he clearly understands the depth of what he's doing, and he understands what he is doing is wrong. If I'm defending the case, what I do based on this manifesto is I just have to separate him as far as I can from this to say, listen, he's changed. He had a psychotic break. People 6 months from the date of his arrest didn't recognize him, didn't understand him. He lost contact with his family members. So you can kind of say, look, this was the unhinged. This was the out of bounds. This was the mentally ill Luigi Mangione that wrote this manifesto, but he's better now. Unfortunately, that's what's called a mitigation argument, meaning it just says, don't execute me. But if they lose that in trial, he's still looking at life in federal prison. So this absolutely makes it really, really difficult for his defense team in every way.
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to also put up this post that we have there from the New York Post saying that Luigi Mangione's manifesto revealed, as we're talking about some of the stuff, but also a failed plot for mass casualty event. Jeremy, I found this extremely interesting. So in that same notebook that the prosecutors behind this case are alleging is the manifesto that proves that Luigi Mangione pre-planned his attack on the United Healthcare CEO. He also expressed relief that he had not followed up on an atrocity that could have been a mass casualty event. He said, I'm glad that in a way I procrastinated because it would have allowed me to learn more about UHC. He said it would have been an unjustified catastrophe that would have been perceived mostly as sick, but more importantly, unhelpful. He also talked about innocents would have been killed as well. But they're trying to say that this would have happened in his native Maryland. Not a lot of clues, though, as to what that event even potentially was. But now that they have this notebook, could more charges be filed, being that he could have potentially pre-planned a mass terror attack as well?
I don't know about that, Christina. That's a great question, because a lot of the things that you're talking about could certainly be more charges if, for argument's sake, he got further and further down the path of making some of those other plans come true. If he took actual steps to do those, then he could be charged with some other type of thing, or if there was anybody else in on it with him, it could be a conspiracy. But what makes me think that probably it's not is that I think they've had this manifesto, this diary, they've had it for a minute now. They've had it for at least 5 or 6 months. And I think they just are now sort of slow rolling some of these things out there to in the courtroom and to the media. So I think we would have seen by now any additional charges. Then again, maybe there's some additional things that are being investigated. And you have to question, this was a very elaborate plot and tragically for Brian Thompson, a successful plot. But you have to question yourself and wonder how, if one man who is clearly sort of detached from reality, if one man can in fact really be responsible for whatever it is in his mind he had planned. We would certainly hope not. And tragically, I think we've seen the answer all too many times that it's not. But to answer your question, I don't know that we'll necessarily see additional charges, but you better believe the government feels like it's in the best interest of justice to charge him with anything and everything that they possibly and conceivably can. You've got the federal government that is trying to execute him, and then you've got New York State on top of that still wants a life conviction. Everybody's getting in line to pound on Luigi Mangione. It's simply good politics if you're an elected official.
And we're, again, continuing to see that. Thanks for breaking that down, Jeremy. That was just one of the questions that I had. Before I let you go, I want to bring this up as well. Another interesting piece that came out of this notebook. Mangione praised and also did cite some criticism of the Unabomber. He said, for example, he makes some good points on the future of humanity, but to make his point, he indiscriminately did mail bombs to innocents. That's interesting that he's bringing yet another person who was known for their terror attacks into it. It sort of shows how these copycats can be born from acts of terrorism.
That's exactly what the FBI is afraid of here, are copycat folks. And he invoked Michael Moore's name in there, who very, very quickly distanced himself from Mangione, saying, hey, nothing to see here. I disavow anything and everything that this guy is, any praise that this guy is bringing my way. It just, again, to kind of go back to the beginning of it, this is really tailor-made for the government's case, and it fits exactly within their theory. Now, at the end of the case, what has to happen, though, is the jury has to buy into it. And I think the jury can go a long way with this. To find Luigi Mangione guilty. It's hard to see any realistic avenues for acquittal. But the real fight in this case is whether or not a jury will send Luigi Mangione to death. And that is still really a far stretch. And I don't know that this manifesto gets them there, because again, the defense can always come back and say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is exhibit A of how mentally ill this man is. And as much as capital punishment, as much as the new administration has wanted to be more aggressive with it, the jurors still have to be there with it. And it's very difficult, I think, in the 21st century to ask somebody with mental health issues that they be executed. It's very hard to get jurors to take that leap.
And it'll certainly be interesting as we're continuing to wait to watch it all unfold, getting fed these bits and pieces of information leading up to ultimately the day we'll see Luigi Mangione in court, putting back up some of this video footage there. And again, Jeremy Rosenthal, our legal analyst, helping us to break it down. Jeremy, any final thoughts?
My final thought is that this case is going to be an interesting one. I think he should be tried, and he'll end up being either death penalty or life in prison with no parole. So it's weird. That's a weird case right there. One second here. Just gonna go here and watch this one. This is the last one, so let's enjoy it. See what happens.
The retired 4-star General Jack Keane, Army General. 4 stars are hard to get. I just want people to know it's an amazing accomplishment. He's a great patriot. General, I want to read some headlines to you here that are recent, the last few days. Here's one headline. Iran orders thousands of tons of ballistic missile ingredients for China, up to 800 missiles that those can provide for. That's the Jerusalem Post. AP, Iran has amassed even more near weapons grade uranium, UN watchdog says, more than they thought, and they've been hyper-generating it since they've been negotiating with our administration. CNN, Iran's supreme leader slams U.S. nuclear proposal, says it will continue to enrich uranium. And then Iran counter U.S. nuclear offer as Trump sends new warning. General, this is a terrorist regime that is hell-bent on getting nuclear weapons. Am I right about that?
No, absolutely. And the motivation is very clear. They believe just downright that if Saddam Hussein had a nuclear weapon, he never would have been removed. If Gaddafi did not give up his nuclear weapons, he never would have been removed. It's about the preservation of the regime, one, and number two, as leverage to threaten Israel, and if necessary, destroy the state of Israel. And we've got to be clear right about that. Americans who roll their eyes at something like that and say, oh, they can't be serious. Believe me, they are serious. And the Arabs know it as well. And if they get a nuclear weapon, we are in then a nuclear arms race. And the Arabs will get those weapons as quickly as possible. And my friend Henry Kissinger warned me, and he said, Jack, the greatest danger, I think, facing the United States from World War II to the present is a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, which would likely lead, his words, to a nuclear exchange. He said, we can never, ever let this happen. So that's where we are, and we got to put our foot down here.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe
Yeah,
to
they can't
Fox
have the
News
weapon.
YouTube
The
page
weapon,
and
that's
catch our
something
hottest
that it's not going to be good for humanity, and you don't want to arms race with the U.S. because the U.S. have really strong, capable weapons, futuristic weapons that they're not going to even, the world's not going to know that they have. Well, they kind of know that they have, but it's like they're not going to play their cards and show their cards. They're going to hold those cards close to their chest. And this is not good energy. So with that said, it was a good show. We saw some stories and kind of got agitated at a couple of them. I just didn't want to continue watching it because it's just stupid. Especially that baby formula. The baby formula, the way they put it together, the concoctions they put it together is horrible. Some of them you even have like metal, like iron deposits in it. Like that's wild. That's crazy. Feed your kids your breast and that's it. Like if you can't breastfeed, you could get it from another female because it's the most natural and more nutrients than any type of milk you put together through the government. It's just not gonna work. I'm possibly not gonna be on here later today. I'm just gonna let you guys know I don't think I'm gonna be on because I'm gonna be watching this WWE events tonight and today, well, throughout the day and tonight. So I hate when they do this. They put an event at 3 p.m, and then I gotta sit through that and watch that, and then watch another 3 hours at night. It's just too much. They should have spread it out a little bit better. But that's where you have a greedy company like TKO that they're money hungry and they want to put out as much as possible to entertain too many at the same time, and they're just grabbing people's wallets on the way in. It's a ridiculous business, but it is a business and it's a show. It's real, but it's not real. The physicality is definitely real. Storyline is not real. It's a story. It's fake, but they have to create drama and create for the fans to be passionate about and to follow it. And we get suckered in and watch. And I like to watch. I watch because I like to figure out the storylines and see the direction that they're going in. But as far as TKO as a company, they could do a lot better. They can do a lot better. But other than that, everyone have a good day, good morning, and good night wherever you're at. I'm sure you guys gonna have a great Saturday. I'm definitely gonna be cooking and getting some food done. And I got things to do. So, and I know you do too. So continue doing what you're doing. If I'm not on back later on tonight, then I'll definitely be on here tomorrow. Probably do an early show too. I'm not 100% sure yet, but it is what it is, and we'll see what stories come our way. And have a good day, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Peace for now.